Hi, it's Nookies. I hope you're all well. I've spoken to some of you on the phone over the last few days, which has been really nice. It's been great to hear your voices. I do miss them, even when they're talking out loud. Hope you're all getting on along well with your siblings and you're doing the work all right. If you have any problems, ask your parents or adults to just email the school and they can get in contact with me. I'm going to continue on with the book, so we're about to find out who's the prisoner in the basement. Some of you might have a clue already. I think I do, but we'll see. Right. Chapter 11, The Prisoner. Peter switched on his torch, his hand trembling as he did so. What were they going to see? What they saw was so surprising that both boys gave a gasp of amazement. They were looking down on a beautiful horse, whose pricked ears and rolling eyes showed that he was as scared as they were. "A horse!" said Jack feebly. "Golly, it's a horse!" Yes, that squealing was its frightened whinny, and the thudding was its hooves on the stone floor when it rushed about in panic, said Peter. "Oh, Jack, poor, poor thing. How wicked to keep a horse down here like this. Why do they do it?" "It's such a beauty. It looks like a racehorse," said Jack. "Do you suppose they've stolen it? Do you think they're hiding it here till they can change it to another colour or something? Horse thieves do that, you know, and then they sell it somewhere under a different name." "I don't know. You may be right," said Peter. "I'm going down to him." "Aren't you afraid?" said Jack. "Look at his rolling eyes." "No, I'm not afraid," said Peter, who was quite used to horses, growing up in his father's farm, and had been brought up with him since he was a baby. Poor thing, it wants talking to and calming. Peter went down the steps, talking as he went. "So you're Kerry Blue, are you? And a beautiful name it is, too, for a beautiful horse. Don't be frightened, Beauty. I'm your friend. Just let me stroke that velvety nose of yours, and you'll be all right." The horse squealed and shied away. Peter took no notice. He went right up to the frightened creature and rubbed his hand fearlessly down its soft nose. The horse stood absolutely still. Then it suddenly nuzzled against the boy and made funny little snorting noises. "Jack, come on, the horse is friendly now," called Peter. "He's such a beauty. What brutes those men are to keep a horse down in a dark cellar like this. It's enough to make it go mad." Jack came down the steps. He stroked the horse's back and then gave an exclamation. "Ugh, he feels sticky and wet." Peter shone his torch to the horse's coat. It gleamed wetly. I don't know wetly was a word. I don't think it is. "Jack, you were right. Those men have been dyeing him," cried Peter. "His coat's still wet with the dye. And that's the horrid smell we smelled. The dye being boiled up, ready to use. I think hair dye and stuff like that in the olden days used to be really rotten. It still has a bit of a smell, peroxide, but yeah. Not that I know," said Jack. "Poor old Kerry Blue. What have they been doing to you?" The horse had a mass of straw in one corner and a rough manger of hay in another. Oats were in a heavy pail. Water was in another pail. "Well, if we want a bed, we'll have to use the straw," said Peter. "And we have oats for a feed." "We shan't need to," said Jack. "I bet old Colin and George will come and look for us soon. We'll shout the place down as soon as we hear them." They settled down on the straw to wait. Kerry Blue decided to lie down on the straw too. The boys leaned against his warm body, wishing he didn't smell so strongly of dye. Up in the field, where the snow was now rapidly melting, Colin and George had been waiting impatiently for a long time. They had seen Jack and Peter disappear over the gate and had a difficult time holding Scamper back because he wanted to follow them. They had stood there quietly for about half an hour, wondering when Peter and Jack were coming back, when Scamper began to growl. "He can hear something," said Colin. "Yes, a car, coming down the lane. I hope it's not those men again. Jack and Peter will be caught if so." The car had no trailer van behind it this time. It stopped at the gate of the old house and two men got out. Scamper suddenly barked loud and at once was cuffed by Colin. "Idiot," hissed Colin. "Now you've given us away." One of the men came to the field gate at once. He gazed at the 6 snowmen. "Come and look here," he called to the other man, who went to stand beside him. How Colin and George trembled and quaked. "What? Oh, we saw the snowmen there last night, don't you remember?" he said. "Some kids have been messing about again today and built a few more. Come on, that dog we hear barking must be a stray one about somewhere." The men left the gate and went up the drive to the house. Colin and George breathed freely again. There was a narrow escape. Thank goodness for their white faces, caps and sheets. Thank goodness Scamper was in white too. For a long time there was no sound at all. Colin and George got colder and more impatient. What was happening? They wished they knew. Were Jack and Peter caught? At last, just as they thought they would they must give up and go and scout around the house themselves to see what was happening. They heard sounds again, voices. Ah, the men were back again. There was the sound of a car door being shut quietly. The engine started up. The car moved again to the lane, turn around in the field gate again, go around in a circle, and come out facing the lane. It went by quickly, squelching in the soft, melting snow. They're gone, said Colin. And we were real idiots not to have stolen up to the gate and taken the car's number. Now it's too late. Yes, we could have done that, said George. What shall we do now? Shall we wait to see if Peter and Jack come out? Yes, but not for too long, said Colin. My feet are really frozen. They waited for about 5 minutes, and still no Peter or Jack came. So, sloshing through the fast-melting snow, the two boys went to the gate. They climbed over. Soon they were in the drive of the old house, hurrying up to the front door with Scamper at their heels. But of course they couldn't get in there, nor in the other doors either. And then, like Jack and Peter, they discovered the open window. In they went. They stood on the kitchen floor and listened. They could hear nothing at all. They called softly, Jack! Peter! Are you here? Nobody answered. Not a sound was to be heard in the house. Then Scamper gave a loud bark and ran into the passage between the scullery and the kitchen. He scraped madly at a door there. The boys followed at once, and no sooner had they got there than they heard Peter's voice. Who's there? That you, Colin and George? Say the password if it is. Weekdays, where are you? Called Colin. Down here in the cellar. We'll come up, said Peter's voice. We're all right. Can you unlock the door, or has the key been taken? No, it's here, said Colin, left in the door. He turned the key and unlocked the door. He pushed it open just as Jack and Peter came up to the top of the cellar steps. And behind them came somebody else. Somebody whose feet made a thudding noise on the stone steps. Carey Blue. He wasn't going to be left behind in the dark cellar all alone. He was going to stay with these nice, kind boys. Colin and George gasped in amazement. They stared at Carey Blue as if they'd never seen a horse in their lives before. A horse, down in the cellar, locked up with Peter and Jack. What an extraordinary thing. Have the men gone? Asked Peter, and Colin nodded. Yes, away in their car. That's why we came to look for you. They saw us in the fields because Scamper barked, but they thought they were just snowmen. I say, what happened here? Let's get out of the house, said Peter. I just can't bear being here anymore. He led Carey Blue behind him, and Colin was surprised the horse made so little noise on the wooden floor of the kitchen. He looked down at the horse's hooves and gave an exclamation. Look, what's he got on his feet? Felt slippers, made to fit his great hooves, said Peter with a grin. That explains the curious prints we saw in the snow. I guess he had those on so he wouldn't make too much noise down the cellar. My word, he was scared when we found him. Come on, I'm going home. That's the end of chapter 11. Chapter 12 is the last chapter, and it is called The End of the Adventure, very aptly. Right, so that's our last chapter, which I'll do tomorrow. And then our next book, which we're going to start on Friday, is called Kensuke's Kingdom by Michael Morpurgo. You may have read this already. I did this with Year 6 a few years ago. So I'm really excited to read that with you, and we'll find out all about it. I'll read the blurb tomorrow so you get an idea. Right, in the meantime, look after yourselves. I'm going to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.